be to start creating the controllers, and we want to perform all the necessary logic. Now let's start by creating our first controller for managing authors. Is we remember we have a model for authors, so now let's create the controller for that. So php @ make controller, then we'll give the name of the controller to be author controller, and then I'll give a flag of --API. So what it does, when you put a --API, this will create a controller with all the default methods for CRUD operations, but it will exclude the two methods for edit and create, which will be used when you are creating a CRUD operation for an application that have the views. So here in API we don't have the views, so that's why we don't need those forms. So by putting this --API, we are excluding the two methods. So if you want to know more about that, you can read from Laravel documentation here. So you can just generate an API resource controller that does not include the create and edit methods. So you just need to use this flag. So I'll show you what will be generated after running this command. So you can see author controller has been created. So now if you go back here and check it, you can see there is author controller, and down here you can see you are given the default methods. So you have the index, store, show, and update, also destroy. So all of these are used for CRUD operations. So we don't have the edit or the create methods, but if you run that command and add just the resource, so it will just add those two methods. So for now, this is what we wanted. So now we will start to perform the functionality on this particular controller. So the first one here, we have this method which is called this index, which is used for displaying the list of a particular resource. So what we are going to do here is to have a way to show our authors. So here I'll create a variable, then I'll name it author, and then I'll fetch all the authors, and I want to paginate this data. So what I'll do, I can just paginate this data, and I want to get 10 authors at a time. So by adding that way, let me import this class, import the author model, which is this one, and then now down here we need to return this to our API request. So let's say we want to return response, then in a JSON format. Then from here you can specify anything that you want to return. So for example, I can say data, or I can just say author, and then I can return the authors here. So let me terminate here. Author, or this should be authors here. Okay, so now that's cool. But also you can specify other things. For example, here you can specify the status, headers, and the options. So for example, for status, you can put here the status. So for example, you can just put status here. So for example, by default the status will be 200 for okay, but you can put anything if you want. But for most of the cases, if you are returning data and this will be true, so the 200 status will be correct. Okay, so now that's how cool you can do. But also here you can just put anything that you want to check. For example, we can put a message like authors fetch the successful, fetch successful, or you can just say fetch the success. Okay, so that's how cool you can do that. So here we want to see if this works. So in order for us to be able to test this, That's why I showed you that we are going to use Postman as a client that we are going to use to test our APIs. So now we can be able to test this one, but before going to that, you need to add the route for this method to be accessible. So to do so, here on Laravel documentation, here is how we are going to present the routes that are created by using the resourceful controllers. So you are going to use this method called the API resource. Then you are going to pass here the name of the object that you are going to use to reference the data that you want. And then here is the controller that you are going to use. So for now, let's go to the route. So in order for us to be able to test this method, as you can see, we need to add this to our routes so that we can be able to access it through the routes, as we can do it when you are creating just a simple CRUD operation controller or any application. So you need to reference this method to your routes.